Alright, so as the 2025 comes to a close, and as we look at the comic book slate from this year, and I think we've had a pretty great year for comic book movies in general, and so much end up being hits or somehow being misses for some people, but I think we've had a great year, especially whether it was bringing in Marvel's first family or being introduced to a new Superman played by David Corenswet, and I think for what I'm about to say, and I think I have a pretty good feeling about this. And so, this will be my full ranking of all the 2025 comic book movies from worst to best, and give you guys my opinion. Also, let me know where would you rank these movies in the comments down below. But now, let's not waste any time. And so, if you're new, then be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell so I'm on any future vids. But now, let's just hop right into it. And now, coming in at last place at number 4 is Captain America: Brave New World. And honestly, with Sam Wilson being the new Captain America, which I was very excited for, especially with Anthony Mackie leading his own Marvel movie, and just to have that responsibility, but especially with all the controversy that happened, especially in the making of this movie, and yeah, there was a lot, but there was some pretty good action sequences. It was a very useful storytelling, but from the plot and from the story, which I can't get past, but I kind of felt like this felt like a sequel to separate Marvel movies that kind of felt like people did not catch up on before the release of this movie, because especially when you have Harrison Ford playing Thaddeus Ross, who becomes Red Hulk, and when you have like some scenes like that were like, hey, like this is a sequel to 2008's The Incredible Hulk, or like having the return of Liv Tyler as Betty Ross, but it didn't even feel like a Captain America movie. But obviously it did, especially for what Sam Wilson was put up for, especially when it comes to him like fighting Red Hulk. And I just like felt like it's a movie that I don't ever see myself looking back on, but it did have some good, memorable moments, especially with Sam and Thaddeus Ross, and I just do feel like things would have been better, especially with the third act, which was so poorly CGI and green screen. That I'll tell you that, but I can also assume that this is also a movie that's also setting up for future movies, especially with that post-credit scene. But I do have that type of like off feeling that with like Sam Wilson trying to carry on the mantle, especially being passed on from the Shield for when Steve Rogers was Captain America, but with Sam Wilson trying to withhold his own responsibility. But I just kind of felt like things could have been better, and also for where we had Sam Wilson teaming up with Sabra, and when you have Joaquin Torres by his side, and just with everything that goes on, like I kind of felt like, yeah, who was like the main villain all along, and even with the return of Tim Blake Nelson's Samuel Stearns, the leader, I kind of felt like just for how it looked like so dumb, especially for how it looked CGI based, but I feel like, yeah, of course this movie went through a ton of problems, but it turned out to be a very cool, action-packed, heartfelt story. But I just do feel like, I mean, it is part that and also a disaster too. Next up at number 3 is Fantastic Four First Steps, and yeah, we got Marvel's first family. They've been introduced into the MCU. And just from my point of view on it, I feel like it was the perfect film to introduce this family, especially with the dynamic and with every character that has with each other. And I kind of enjoyed all of them. They really bring the chemistry, they really bring the energy to this movie, and especially with introducing Galactus, played by Ralph Ineson, and for how the team are supposed to interact and work together as a team, and just from like the entire aesthetic and the atmosphere of totally making you feel like a retro reality in the 60s, it kind of matches for what the Fantastic Four are in the source material, and I kind of felt like Matt Shackman did do a good job of bringing that to life. And also, and even for how it comes down to like the storytelling for how things were played out, but I kind of do feel like I didn't even have a sense of rewatchability just for how it comes to revisiting it. I thought it was a very great comic book movie. I definitely liked the designs for how the Fantastic Four costumes were turned out, for the way that they were fighting into battle, trying to defeat Galactus. I thought it was a very great comic book movie, and also towards like the post credit scene for when they're also teasing like Avengers Doomsday by bringing Doctor Doom. I tried to set all the down the line, but I kind of just feel like with this team's introduction, it was all just a movie just to set up future movies that I'm pretty sure audiences, I'm not sure if they were aware about, but I'm pretty much aware that this was pretty much a Fantastic Four standalone story, and I kind of felt like even with out of the characters that I really enjoyed the most, it's probably Joseph Quinn's portrayal as Johnny Storm. He really brought that sense of charismatic and that type of like energy to his character, and I kind of liked all of it, and especially with the Silver Surfer, Galactus' Herald, and just with the entire aesthetic of it, I thought it was pretty enjoyable to me. And the Fantastic Four theme by Michael Giacchino and that score, and yeah, it was pretty fun while it lasted, and I liked how it can really feel like a very much a Marvel Studios movie, just for when it comes to a retro realities 60s movie, but with having Marvel's first family being introduced. So yeah, I think Fantastic Four First Steps, yeah, it was a great comic book movie, but still, I feel like it was all just a movie just to set up future Avengers installments. But especially, I'm excited to see for how the Fantastic Four work together with other teams, especially for when it comes to Avengers Doomsday. Coming in number 2 is Thunderbolts, and I think this has to be like the best Marvel movie that they put out in a while, especially out of all of the MCU movies that have come out this year. This one really hit for me. I mean, and like, talk about a movie that really tackles like mental health and the struggle, especially for us, everyone that goes to on a daily basis, but especially with translating that to the big screen for a Marvel movie, it really hits on all the cylinders, especially when you have a fresh team up, and for what all the characters go through, what they have to learn, and how to stick to love one another, especially when it comes to taking down a Sentry played by Lewis Pullman. And I really enjoyed my time, and especially with like this team really learned like so much, especially for how it feels to be coming together. Also, as it had a very top-notch sequences, especially with Bucky having his Terminator moment, trying to take the crew in, especially as they're in like a cargo limo chase. And yeah, it had some of those sequences that were mind-blowing, especially to see on the big screen. And I kind of felt like Sentry as a villain, and he really does have his dark moments, especially towards the third act, for how Lewis Pullman pulled off that character. And yeah, I mean, this team was really fun to watch on screen. They really nailed every single bit of it, but especially for how they explore Yelena and Red Guardian post Black Widow, and they really nailed that type of their story arc. And for the way that, just for how it all comes together, and with Valentina De Fonte, and she really does have that type of moment herself, especially for who was the one behind it. And yeah, I mean, especially with her in the antagonist role, it really speaks a lot. And soon enough, and then it became the new title for it, the New Avengers. That's the team that we were introduced to by the very end of the movie. Plus, even with the Thunderbolts, the New Avengers, and the Fantastic Four, they are all setting up to be for Avengers Doomsday, because that's how it really works to tie in these movies together. But especially as like a standalone project, it really does feel like one of those great Marvel movies that really has not had a chance to tackle the sort of signs that deeper, mature theme of type of storytelling in that tone. And I think for the way that it looked and for the way that it was written. It just felt like a feel-good story that all of us need to carry, so especially with watching this movie. So yeah, Thunderbolts was a true winner for me. But coming in number 1 is Superman, and with having like a new Superman being introduced, played by David Corenswet, and especially that this was a long time in the making, ever since the DC universe went into a reset, and ever since they brought on James Gunn to sort of run the whole thing as the co-CEO. But for the way that this was tackled, of not only having it just be like a superhero comic book movie, but also have like a real story, especially for what Superman means to the world, and have it be like represented to how to like feel like a good person inside to try and help others. And this film really tackles the theme and the tone and for what Superman is as an iconic figure, not just a superhero, but just a big figure that all of us need in our lives. And David Corenswet definitely brought that portrayal to the screen brilliantly as the Man of Steel, and especially with Lex Luthor played by Nicholas Hoult, he really crushed that type of villainy, and he really wanted to bring Superman down and for what he is just as a character, and also the Crypto, and I felt like he was so cute every time he was on screen for that type of presence. Lois Lane played by Rachel Brosnahan. I mean, like, I can name like every single character, but everyone did a great job in this movie, and for the way of James Gunn's direction, of the way that he was able to take on his take and version of Superman, and from the way that it had the score. I mean, this movie had the ability to, you know, just to reshape everything about getting in like a new direction for the DC universe. And plus, as a matter of fact, we do have a sequel on the way, Man of Tomorrow, which I'm very excited for. But especially with the movie itself, I really liked for how it was well done, of telling this story of how Superman has already been developed. Like, he does not need an origin story to just like introduce him for who he is, and that's how you would do it without telling the entire story over again for how Clark Kent it was as a child, but having him like be this superhero that everyone in Metropolis needs, and for the way that he just like comes on screen. And I definitely liked for how Superman performed all of his actions, especially taking down the Hammer of Bravia, or taking down Lex Luthor, especially during the third act. And it has everything that you ever want from a comic book movie. And I think like it's not just a comic book movie, but I think it's like a movie that has strong storytelling and strong meaning, especially when it comes to the Superman character himself. And I think, yeah, Superman was definitely the true, definitive, all-time comic book movie of 2025 for me. And so, there you have it. This is my ranking of all the 2025 comic book movies, and I think for what we're about to look forward to for next year in 2026, it's about to be wild. Especially, we have Spider-Man Brand New Day, Avengers Doomsday, and all that stuff that we all want and love as comic book movie fans, especially for both Marvel and DC as well. So there you have it. But that's gonna do it for this video. Just let me know in the comments down below, and how would you rank all the 2025 movies that come out this year, and what comic book movie from 2025 did you enjoy the most? But just let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to notifications about future videos. Also follow all my social medias all linked down below. And with that, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.